Hi, it's Katrina. The Assyrians. Situated on the outskirts of Mosul in present-day Iraq, the ancient Assyrian city of Nineveh was settled as early as 6000 BC during the late Neolithic period. By 3000 BC, it had become a major religious center dedicated to the Mesopotamian goddess Ishtar. Ishtar was the goddess of war and passion, as well as the goddess of rain and thunderstorms. Built along a fault line, Nineveh experienced numerous earthquakes, including one that destroyed the original temple of Ishtar. It became a great city and center of learning nonetheless, serving as the capital of the Assyrian Empire for much of its existence. Under King Sennacherib, Nineveh grew to include parks, aqueducts, canals, an 80-room palace, a wall surrounding the city, and a library containing around 30,000 clay tablets. Nineveh was continuously inhabited for thousands of years, and for roughly 50 years until 612 BC, it was the world's largest city. That year, a coalition of allied forces sacked and razed Nineveh, massacring many of its residents throughout the brutal attack and scaring others to the countryside. The city never recovered from the destruction, but was also never fully abandoned. In the following decades, Nineveh came under the rule of either the Medes or the Neo-Babylonian Empire, and was further conquered by numerous civilizations, including the Seleucid Empire, the Parthian Empire, the Sasanian Empire, and finally the Arabs. It was reduced mostly to ruins by the 13th century. The modern-day site consists of two large mounds and the remains of the city's massive stone and mud brick wall that was built around 700 BC. Sadly, what's left of Nineveh is losing its battle to the elements, looters, and the Islamic State, which threatened to destroy any remaining evidence of its long and rich history. Cahokia. What is today nothing but mounds of green grass near St. Louis, Missouri, was once the site of the largest ever pre-Columbian settlement anywhere north of the Mexican border. It was occupied from between 800 and 1400 AD, consisting of at least 120 mounds during its peak. At the time, it was one of the greatest cities in the world, even larger than London was in the year 1250. The culture occupied much of the Mississippi Valley, and each mound had its own purpose. For example, there were mounds used for public buildings and for burials. Archaeologists even discovered an astronomical observatory built of wooden posts that they dubbed Woodhenge. Yet despite so much archaeological evidence collected by the experts, we still don't really know a lot about the ancient Mississippian civilization or what happened to them. Like many of the other pre-urban societies of North America, they vanished between 1300 and 1400, leaving no evidence behind as to why they left or where they went. The world's first smiley face. The first smiley face in the entire world has just been put on exhibit in Turkey at the Gaziantep Archaeology Museum. The smiley face that we know and love actually goes back 3,700 years. You can think of it as the first emoji ever. The face was discovered inscribed on an ancient jug in the city of Carchemish. This old and forgotten city was the capital of the mysterious Hittite civilization. Apparently, they were making smiley faces before anyone else. The excavation team was led by Professor Niccolo Marchetti, who was in the city for 7 years searching for artifacts and trying to gain better insight into who the Hittites were. The archaeologists found plenty of interesting artifacts over the years, but the smiley face was by far the best. But why was the smiley face emoji inscribed on the side of an ancient jug in the first place? That remains a mystery that archaeologists will probably never solve. The jug was actually found in fragments and had to be pieced back together, and researchers were shocked when they saw the two dots and the semicircle making up the smiley face. It's the first one in human history, but nobody knows what could have motivated the artist. Perhaps someone just wanted to add some cheer to someone else's day by drawing them a smile. Great Zimbabwe. Built in the southeastern hills of modern-day Zimbabwe, the enormous walled city of Great Zimbabwe is one of ancient Africa's long-enduring mysteries. Researchers have established that Great Zimbabwe was rich, powerful, and technologically advanced, but the extent of its influence is unknown. People began living in Great Zimbabwe around 1100 AD, and it peaked between 1200 and 1450, during which time it housed as many as 30,000 residents. Wealth from distant lands flowed into the city, which was at the heart of an expansive and wealthy trade network that extended as far as China and India. The city was also rich with gold, thanks to its local mines and large cattle herds. Surrounded by walls measuring up to 66 feet high, the medieval city may have served as a royal palace for the Zimbabwean monarch. Even more mysteriously, the city suffered an unexplainable decline and was abandoned during the 15th century. Baffled scholars speculate that political instability, overpopulation, changes in trade routes, the exhaustion of gold mines, and/or famines caused by overgrazing may have contributed to Great Zimbabwe's downfall. Today, the UNESCO World Heritage Site is in ruins. Its most fascinating feature is the Great Enclosure. Dating back to the 14th century, the area is surrounded by a circular wall and additional inner walls, and it contains a tower. Its use is unknown, but researchers have suggested that it functioned as a royal palace or a grain storage facility. Sadly, only limited excavations have been carried out, and the site was significantly damaged during the 20th century by European looters. It's possible, or even likely, that Great Zimbabwe's secrets are contained within its unexplored ruins. The Kiladi Civilization. Archaeologists in southern India came upon a rusted old iron dagger that might not seem like much, but it might just provide clues about a lost civilization. Found near Tamil Nadu, the area was once home to the ancient Kiladi Civilization. The dagger was found inside a burial urn right next to some very ancient skeletons. The dagger measures about 16 inches long, and even though it was broken in half, the wooden handle was still intact, which is almost even more important. Preserved wood can actually provide a lot of information. According to the Tamil Nadu Department of Archaeology, this type of dagger was used by warriors for about 600 years, between the 3rd century BC and the 3rd century AD. But this wasn't the only interesting thing found inside of a burial urn by the archaeologists. They discovered 25 other burial urns, some filled with weapons, some with random pieces of bone, and some with items long since decayed beyond recognition. Researchers believe the burial urns were left behind by the Kiladi, and that they were part of a much larger cemetery. Some of the artifacts date back to about 580 BC, which fits in nicely with the time the civilization was active. Archaeologists currently know about 3 other sites linked to these mysterious people, where they left behind structures with clay floors, brick walls, board games, and a mysterious script. It's believed that these people descended from the Harappan civilization, and when it declined, some people may have moved south to start fresh. Not much is known about the Kiladi, but thanks to the wooden handle left behind by an ancient dagger, the dates are now much more clear. But what happened to these people that seemed to have it all together? They had a well-developed city for their time, agriculture, all kinds of industry, and a population who could read. Maybe it was some unknown disaster that forced them to leave. Iram of the Pillars. The Quran makes several mentions of an ancient city or a region called Iram of the Pillars. Roman and Nabatean traders reportedly recognized it for its vast wealth and its lofty buildings. Some believe that Iram was the home of a mighty tribe called the Ad. The Quran says they came right after the time of Noah and built monuments on elevated places. The city sometimes went by the name of Ubar and may have functioned as the capital of the kingdom of Ad. According to the Quran, a catastrophic wind blew through the region for 7 days straight and buried Iram in the sand, leaving no trace of it visible to the naked eye. What's left of it, if anything, is thought to be somewhere on the Arabian Peninsula. Nobody has ever found evidence of Iram being a real place, leading some experts to believe that Iram might have been a myth, the product of folklore that's been handed down through the generations. But even if this is the case, the stories may be rooted in a real place. Many people have searched for Iram, but it remains shrouded in mystery to this day. T. Lawrence, better known as Lawrence of Arabia, described the elusive ancient city as the Atlantis of the Sands. In other words, even if Iram actually existed, it continues to hide from everyone, but there are some desperately trying to find it. Aturia. Etruria was an ancient culture that emerged as early as 900 BC in what are now the Tuscany and Umbria regions of central Italy. Its inhabitants were the Etruscans, who shared a complex culture linked by a confederation of 12 city-states. By 650 BC, the civilization became a dominant culture, extending into both northern and southern Italy. The Etruscans also had far-reaching trade connections reaching as far as Egypt, with whom they both traded directly and through intermediaries, such as the Greeks and the Phoenicians. Etruria had a strong military tradition that generally benefited from warfare, embarking on raid campaigns of neighboring areas during the summer and acquiring territory and other valuable resources, including goods and slaves. The society valued monogamy and family life and gave women an unusual degree of freedom for the time, which perhaps contributed to the Roman and Greek views that Etruscan women were promiscuous. Etruscan culture strongly influenced Roman architecture, ritual practices, and other aspects of its culture. In fact, several Etruscan kings ruled in Rome until 509 BC, shortly before the Roman Republic was established. Etruria is also credited with bringing elements of Greek culture into the early Roman Republic, including the 12 Olympian gods, olive and grape farming, the Latin alphabet, and architectural features including the arch and sewer and drainage systems. Most mainstream scholars believe that when Rome absorbed Etruria cities during the 3rd century BC, the two cultures merged, but there are admittedly noticeable gaps in researchers' knowledge of the Etruscans, including their architecture, language, and literature. The Canaanites. The Canaanite civilization is mentioned multiple times in the Bible. It is one of the most mysterious ancient societies that we know almost nothing about. That is, until recently, when new archaeological evidence revealed that the ancient Canaanites may have crafted the earliest pieces of an alphabet that we still use today. Archaeologists investigating the old Canaanite settlement of Lachish discovered a pottery shard dating back 3,500 years, inscribed with what they say is the oldest text anywhere in Israel, written using an alphabetic script. Earlier texts have been found from the Canaanite civilization, but they were written using hieroglyphics or other outdated methods. What this discovery has done is fill a gap in the earliest history of the written word. From what scientists can understand, Canaanite migrants developed the alphabet in ancient Egypt. This is the very alphabet that would spread around the world and ultimately become what is used today in English, Spanish, French, and many other languages. The pottery fragment itself was probably imported from Cyprus and was written on with ink in the earliest Canaanite alphabet. Scientists have not been able to decipher the short text, nor have they been able to figure out how the Canaanites managed to go from hieroglyphics to an actual alphabet. The first fire. In one of the most shocking discoveries of our time, researchers believe they finally found the first fire. This has been a burning question for thousands of years, no pun intended. Anthropologists have debated when and where human beings figured out how to create fire whenever they wanted. This was the defining moment which separated our ancient ancestors from the kingdom of beasts. Because before fire, humans were basically just really hairy people hiding in the dark and being eaten by lions. To understand the development of fire, let's take a look at how fire is made. There are 3 ingredients: fuel, oxygen, and combustion. The biggest issue for ancient humans would have been combustion. The only way a fire would have started on Earth before us was lightning strikes and other weather phenomenon, or maybe lava from a volcano. So how did humans get the jump on it? The oldest fire that we know of created naturally was 420 million years ago, identified because of charcoal and rocks. But it wasn't until 345 million years ago, during the early Carboniferous period, that the first wildfire ravaged the world thanks to a high level of atmospheric oxygen. In Israel, inside the Kesem cave, archaeologists found the earliest evidence of humans making fire. This is the first place in the world where archaeologists have found evidence of a single hearth being repeatedly used. They found evidence that flint was used to start a fire in the same spot over and over, based on leftover scraps of stone and the charred ground dating back 400,000 years ago. However, it wouldn't be until 40,000 years ago that humans all over the world finally had a grip on the stuff. The Gira Culture. During the 3rd millennium BC, in what is now Iran's Halil River Valley, an early Bronze Age civilization called the Gira Culture emerged. The obscure culture's sprawling urban settlement was surrounded by rugged mountains on 3 sides and consisted of 2 large burial mounds, a fortified citadel, and numerous smaller buildings. The Gira people had a sophisticated lifestyle and a complex social hierarchy for their time. They practiced religion and crafted fine goods like vases and statues. After peaking sometime between 2500 and 2200 BC, the civilization abandoned its settlements for unknown reasons. Their deserted villages were buried and forgotten. The sites were rediscovered during the early 20th century. They were excavated several times, but also fell victim to looters, leaving few artifacts for experts to learn from. Consequently, modern scholars know very little about the Gira culture. It's clear that the people were a distinct group with their own architecture, language, beliefs, and a writing system that consisted of geometric figures. Some researchers believe that the society may very well be one of the cradles of civilization, one of the first places in the world where complex urban centers grew. It's even possible that the Gira culture was once as great as the Sumerians or ancient Mesopotamia. Unfortunately, most of what they left behind has been lost to history. Thanks for watching! Which ancient civilization is your favorite? Let me know in the comments below. And if you'd like to learn about more mysterious lost civilizations, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more. See you soon! Bye!